So somebody who in one context has abused people, with the right correction, and I agree with Peter that actually the minimum that should be there for people who violate others should be a jail sentence. But I think it's important to recognize that you don't jail people to send them away from society. You jail them to correct them. When you take a case out of the country, you have to carry with you all the witnesses that need to testify. So you need to find safe houses for them, and a case may take up to a year. And as we know from other cases, what happens is witnesses tend to be intimidated, they tend to be disappeared, they're bribed, and most cases fail as a result of that problem. If we continue to frame the issue of gender-based violence in terms of men versus women, will we be further creating the tension between? And I think it is easy for us to condemn anybody. Condemning is very easy. What is difficult is actually transforming the behavior of certain groups of people in terms of other groups of people. It is difficult running human rights organizations in Kenya today, right? There is a fallacy, there is a false mythhood that human rights organizations are extremely well funded. Over the last 10 years, I've probably seen about 40% drop in funding from, overseas development assistance, whether it be foundations, whether it be foreign governments, whether it be the UN or multilateral institutions. So 40% drop in the last 10 years. The scale of the challenges that we have cannot be met through the available resources that are there. Let me just put that there. This was even before the closing of USAID. Right now we are in a different game altogether. And so I think for those of you who have expectations of human rights organizations, I would ask you to couple that expectation with making donations. And I think the one thing that we haven't tried yet is a model of using some of your remittances, so using some of your donations to actually do some work on structural problems, right? So all of us have given money at some point or the other to help somebody go through a medical procedure or to save somebody's life, right?
Yes.
But very few of us have ever given a shilling, a dollar. I was trying to think what it is in Australia, a British Australian pound. No,
is it a dollar? I think it's dollar.
Peter, what is it, Bwana? What's your currency, Omera?
What's your currency, Peter? Ama, you'd use shillings there.
Australian dollar.
Australian dollar.
Okay. Thank you very much. As you probably have realized, I've not managed to get there yet. So I think people do need to provide resources. Very few people. I mean, I'm sure if we did a straw poll here, how many of you have given to a human rights organization? Forget an international, one with an international reputation like Amnesty, but Usikimye, the organization that does safe houses across Kenya.
Drop a comment if you've donated to any human rights organization.
And not just once, but regularly.
Yes.
Right? Because if you think about keeping the doors open, keeping those spaces safe, both for men and women who have been violated, it needs consistent resources. Plus children, right? So that's the first thing I think it's really important. It's not an excuse, it's just a reality check that actually the resources are much fewer than the problems that we're up against. The second thing that was raised was an issue around if we continue to frame the issue of gender-based violence in terms of men versus women, will we be further creating the tension between? And I think it is easy for us to condemn anybody. Condemning is very easy. What is difficult is actually transforming the behavior of certain groups of people in terms of other groups of people. So I tend to argue that it is less important to call out people by name, but to call out the behavior and demand that the behavior stops. So somebody who in one context has abused people, with the right correction, and I agree with Peter that actually the minimum that should be there for people who violate others should be a jail sentence. But I think it's important to recognize that you don't jail people to send them away from society. You jail them to correct them, right? So it's in the prisons that they should get the kind of support and psychosocial support to make sure that they can come back to the society, they can be part of the society, and they can be, good citizens. there is an important, I think, issue that has been raised around the use of international law and the use of international justice mechanisms. So Amnesty does this regularly. For example, we have taken positions on things happening in specific countries, and we've taken it to the ICC, or we've taken it to a regional, like the African Court of Justice or the East African Court of Justice. But the thing that's tricky there is that there are two things that are really challenging. One is that you have to prove to those courts that you have gone through the legal system domestically and that you have not received justice, or that you are not able to prosecute that case domestically.
Wow. So that's like a minimum threshold.
Minimum threshold.
Very, very,
Right?
very, very profound information.
And then let me share one case where we've done something a bit in the opposite direction. In 2017, scores of police officers rampaged through Nyalenda and other Kisumu settlements in between those 4 months of the elections, the two elections, right? And baby Pendo was on her mother's back, Lancer Cheng's back. And as she came out of the house, her father shouted, "We are coming out, we are unarmed, we have children." As they came out, the police formed a line of officers, and they beat them as they were trying to escape from the tear gas and from the houses. And on the back of Lancer was baby Pendo. Baby Pendo was not the only one that was hurt that day or killed that day. She died. There were 60 other victims of post-election violence. We, as Amnesty International, have been supporting a case that is a criminal case. So it's been filed by the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to find justice for baby Pendo and the 60 victims. Why is this really important? Because for the first time in the history of Kenya, the Director of Public Prosecutions has actually filed the case using the International Crimes Act. So he has filed alleging that the crimes against humanity have taken place. Not 5 counts, not 3 counts, but 47 counts of crimes against humanity. There are 12 police commanders who are being charged for command responsibility, not the people who necessarily swung the batons, not the people who threw the tear gas, but the people who told them to do this.
To do so.
That case is ongoing at the moment. There are several witnesses, and herein lies the second challenge that I was referring to. When you take a case out of the country, you have to carry with you all the witnesses that need to testify. So you need to find safe houses for them, and a case may take up to a year. And as we know from other cases, what happens is witnesses tend to be intimidated, they tend to be disappeared, they're bribed, and most cases fail as a result of that problem. So it is the case that you can go to an international court, but I think the domestic structures, we must continue to demand that the domestic justice, or rather justice, can be found at home, it can be found swiftly, and it can be found fairly. And I think that's the Amnesty model at the moment. So we're taking a lot of cases to the domestic courts, even if it takes 5. The average time it takes for a case against a police officer is between 4 and 6 years.
Wow.
I joined Amnesty in 2018. Evans Jeroge was the student leader of Meru University. He was killed by a police officer. I swore that I would not resign from Amnesty until that case came to a conviction. It is now 2025.
Yeah.
That case is still hearing testimonies from witnesses.
In the Kenyan court system,
so,
or international?
So the speedy justice,
local.
the speedy justice is not working as efficiently as it's supposed to.
No.
Yeah.